Hi everyone. Welcome to the second episode of Success, a veteran's guide, and I hope you all are having a great day. So this show is centered around helping veterans succeed after the military. And my name is Neil, and we have a very special guest for you all today. Transitioning Green Beret, Jose Vasquez, who has spent the past 20 years serving in various positions in the Army and Special Forces. Lieutenant Colonel Vasquez has had multiple deployments overseas, with missions ranging from conducting counter-narco-terrorist operations in Latin America, managing intelligence platforms in support of counterterrorism operations in Afghanistan, to establishing a special operations recruiting station in the Middle East to seek volunteers who were redeploying from combat. Thank you for coming on the show today, Mr. Vasquez.
Oh, thank you, Neil. Thank you for having me.
So now we've had a quick introduction. Let's maybe start out with your beginning career in the military. So why did you decide to join the military?
Oh, that's a great question. So I'm living proof of the American dream. I'm an immigrant, and my parents moved to the United States when I was 5 years old from the Dominican Republic. They worked two jobs to put my brother and I through school, and they really taught me a lot of great lessons. And the opportunities that I was able to have here in the United States, for me, I felt like I had to give back. So around the time I was a junior in high school, I realized that I wanted to join the military, and I volunteered. So, and I've loved it ever since. So.
And then after you enlisted, what was that path after that? So what did you do after you enlisted?
So when I enlisted in the Army, the day I graduated high school was the day that I went to basic training. And I enlisted in the reserves and went through training. And then come September of after the summer, I went to college. I went to university. About 2 years into the university, I had some really great non-commissioned officers who in essence told me I had the right stuff to become an officer. And they pushed me, and I decided to join ROTC during my junior year in college, and I was commissioned into the infantry immediately following university.
And then,
so then after I was commissioned into the infantry, 3 years or about 2.5 years in as a lieutenant, I decided that I wanted a bigger challenge. I wanted something more. I was hungry for some new, bold challenges, and I decided to volunteer for Special Forces at Green Beret, and I did, and I went through the training. It was very arduous, but I was selected, fortunately. And once I was selected to be a Green Beret, selection for Special Forces, that's really just the beginning. The training normally lasts about 18 months, and it's pretty hard. And throughout that entire time, I never really looked back. I knew that was exactly what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And that was about 15 years ago. And since then, I have led teams ranging from 12 to 3,000, traveled all over the world, worked with some great, bold, innovative people that are extremely courageous, both men and women, that can really think outside of the box, and people that you can give them very broad guidance, and they know how to accomplish the mission, and vice versa. I've had leaders who've given me very broad guidance, which is what I like. I truly believe in passion, purpose, and autonomy, and that's one of the core attributes that we have within special operations. Special Forces, Green Berets, the special operations in the Air Force or in the Marines. We have a lot of unique characteristics that really make us unique. Our ability to think boldly, to to not quit, we have this grit about us that we just don't give up. We just keep going until the mission is accomplished. So, and I've lived it, I've seen it, and it's been great. But now it's time for something different.
And before we get out to that decision, just to wrap up with your career in the military, how is that deployment schedule working? What deployments did you go on after you were in Special Forces?
So many, so many deployments to South America, uh, a few deployments to the Middle East, a deployment to Afghanistan, Korea, which was an assignment. One of the things that are unique within our force is that we consider any time that we're away from home, when our heads don't hit the pillow, that's a deployment. Whether it's training, whether it's going overseas, um, so those are considered deployments. So I've been on many of those engagements, and it's tough. It's a challenge. You know, I've been blessed and fortunate enough to have come back in one piece, um, and many of my colleagues have not. So it's it's really been a great experience, a humbling experience, and I'm grateful for it.
So now you've served all these deployments. You've been through arguably some of the toughest military training on the planet. So what made you decide now this may be the time for me to begin transitioning?
It's a very good question. So I began transitioning in my mind actually about maybe a few years ago, about 2 years ago, where I realized that I've met every challenge and met all the goals that I've set for myself back when I was a lieutenant. So now I'm a lieutenant colonel in the Army. Um, I've worked with amazing people. I've reached a point in my life that I'm looking for another challenge, a bigger challenge. And to me, working in the private sector seems to me like that's the next step that I need to take. In addition, I'm looking for some stability for my family. You know, I have a younger daughter who's 4 years old, and she's never been home for longer than a year before we had to move again. So that weighs heavily on my back for my family. And my wife has given me three wonderful children, and I want to be able to give them some stability. So that's one of the reasons why I'm pushing. And honestly, I'm hungry for more. I'm just hungry for more on the outside. So.
Mm-hmm. And so then, now that you decided, okay, now I'm going to make that transition, what steps came after that with respect to your story?
It's a good question. The transitioning so far, so you know, I still have a few more months in the military. It's it it has its highs and lows. Um, so by trade, I'm a strategic planner. So the minute that I decided that I wanted to transition out of the military, I started I started designing my exit. I started thinking of where I'm at today and where do I want to go? Where do I want to be at the end of my time in the service? But not only there, where do I want to be a couple years afterwards? So it's really important that we plan, you know, where do you see yourself in 2 years or in 5 years? One thing that I've learned as a young man or as a young child actually is once you set goals, it's it's weird. The minute you establish a goal, you move towards that goal. Everything that you do, even through your subconscious, you just move towards that goal and you just accomplish it. So the first thing that I did was just sit down in front of a dry erase board and started planning my exit strategy.
Mm-hmm. And then after you have this plan, um, what next? Do you just go at it, or?
So so one of the first steps, and you know, I really appreciate the fact that you're doing this for for veterans. The You have to know your purpose. What is your passion? That took me about 6 months to identify. Um, So in essence, what is it? Why do you wake up in the morning and go to work? For the last 20 years, it's been to work with my colleagues to handle some difficult problems, complex problems, and and work with a great team to handle some of those to tackle some of those problems. So once you retire, once you leave the military, what is it that's going to inspire you to wake up every morning and go to work? And for me, what I realized is that my passion now is to inspire other people to view the world larger than themselves, so that they can secure a greater tomorrow. Um, and to be able to do that, me personally, be able to do that by challenging their assumptions and asking the right questions, having a willingness to fail early, fail often, and fail forward, having that attitude of not quitting and making and helping others feel as if they were elite because they are. So these are some of the things that I had to learn over time, that what were some of my strengths and what am I passionate about. For me, I realized, I was a few months ago, I was in the car with my wife and we're driving, and there was this one company that fights cancer, and I was researching what they do, and I asked my wife, and I asked her, what would you say if I worked for a company that was in the business of fighting cancer, ridding the world of the fear of cancer. And she looked at me and she said, the reason why we live the way we do, the way we eat, um, was because she had a genuine fear of cancer for our family. And then it really hit me. I had an epiphany. I realized, what better way to still feel as if I'm a hero to my family than to help others, help others by saving lives or helping them fight through this disease. Um, so for me, I was able to connect the two. My passion for technology, and working for a company that's in the medical industry, fighting for a disease and helping save lives. So that takes a long time to figure that out. But the minute you realize what's going to inspire you, you have this clarity of mind, this clarity of purpose, where you're focused, and that's where I find myself today. Some people will ask me, I go to conferences and I speak with different people, um, and some people ask me why, you're a special forces officer, very little background in the health industry, or technology outside of being the end user of technology. Why do you want to do this? I'd always ask, why not? I tell people that, um, I, why do we jump out of airplanes? Well, the minute your knees are in the breeze, you kind of have to, you figure it out. You have a great cadre that help you, that teach you, but at the end of the day, it's just you in the air. So I think another one of the tools that's really important is to have this cadre of coaches and mentors that can help guide you through this process. Without without that group, uh, very important people, this journey really becomes very challenging, to say the least.
Tell me your voice password. And as you discussed earlier, you have this great cadre of support that's built up. When you're deciding what to do next after the military, that cadre could come into use, correct?
Say that again. So the cadre,
right?
So the you mean the mentors and the coaches? So the mentors and the coaches that I speak of are folks that are people that I had to research and find, building a network. So the military itself provides you some tools to prepare you for the transition, and they do a spectacular job. They really do. The challenge is that it's very broad based. what's really important is for an individual who's transitioning, especially really any individual out of the military, any veteran that's transitioning, is to really find a mentor, a coach to guide them through the process. Outside of the programs that are already established for us in the military.
Hmm. And when you are working with this mentor, um, how do you effectively find them and how do you leverage their worth? Because as they say, your network is your net worth.
So work, it's a contact sport.
Hmm.
Networking is a very contact sport. So there are a lot of organizations, so many organizations out there that are helping veterans. Um, so, it, and sometimes it can seem a little bit daunting, too daunting. So my advice is just to pick one. It doesn't matter. When I was I was deployed to this foreign country, and this country had a a a significant problem. They were developing certain plans, and the problems were very complex. Where information technology, cyber domain, and cyber threats, uh, an insurgency, a potential for an insurgency. So a lot of complex problems. And when you just observe the problem, you realize you may get stuck with an analysis or paralysis of the analysis. But if you just pick one little piece of the problem, you end up piecing the putting things together. In essence, it's just think of it as a puzzle. The same thing I think applies to the transition. There's so many organizations out there. Just pick one and start the ball rolling. What I found is doing informational interviews were extremely important. So for me, I knew that I wanted to do technology, whether it was artificial intelligence, drones, uh, 3D printing, new advances in technology, in medicine. So those are very broad topics, broad sectors within technology itself. So doing informational interviews were crucial for me in identifying where were my interests, where do they lie. I consider the construction industry, for example, and I had great interviews with people from different companies, and they really sat down and told me their story. And one of the things that I've learned, and again, this is from my experience in the military, especially within special operations, you just sit down and you ask someone a question. Um, Tell me what so how did you get into this business? And you just be quiet. They'll tell you the story. And all you have to do from that point on is just be quiet and take notes and have a dialogue. So those informational interviews really helped me along. And over time, I was able to um, really pinpoint the mentors, the right mentors, and the right coaches to help guide me through this transition.
So once you have your mentor and you've figured out what you're going to do, you've already talked with your family, you found your purpose. Now, when you're looking for a job or a future career, your next path, and you're interviewing with employers, how do you figure out which military skills are translatable and which aren't? Because obviously, especially with special forces, you have an ability to adapt, achieve, overcome. So how do you translate those skills?
That's a very good question. It's hard. It really is in the beginning. So when, and this is when I speak with a lot of my colleagues that are still in the military or are already out of the military, and I'm speaking fellow special forces soldiers, officers, and enlisted soldiers. When I speak with them, and I ask them, "What do you want to do when you get out?" Um, 9 times out of 10, they say they want to do a contract job, or they want to get into security. And not to say that those aren't good professions or industries to get into, but what I try to enlighten them in that they have so many skills that from my understanding, again, I'm still in the military, but I speak from the experiences that I've had by speaking with CEOs, speaking with um, leaders within industry, and asking them these questions. Here's what I can bring, here's the value that I bring to your organization or what I've done in the past. And they guide me and they help me and they realize where I can fit within their organization. First and foremost, leadership. What I've learned is that as a young officer or as a young sergeant, you're expected to lead um, many people, whether it's a small team of 4 individuals to a team of or a team of 30 people. Uh, I ask you, rhetorically, how many leaders come in that are in industry? How often do they start their job instantly leading people? And I would venture to say not too many. It takes a long time. And my hats go off to the CEOs or the executives that are leading in spite of not joining the military and leading platoons or leading special forces teams or Navy SEAL squad or platoon. So in spite of not having that experience, they're out there doing great things for their organizations and leading. So I had one mentor tell me one time that I will lose more in leadership skills than I will ever need on the outside in the private sector because it's needed that much. So leading is one of the skills. One of the challenges that we face is you have to be humble. I mean, you have to show humility when you're out there. Me as a lieutenant colonel, I don't expect to enter a corporate headquarters to be the chief operating officer for that company. For the same reason that I don't expect a CEO for, you name it, the CEO of Facebook or Google to decide one day, you know what, I want to join the Green Berets and I want to be at the equivalent rank, colonel or a brigadier general. It's just not going to happen. So being humble really will help you understand the path that you're getting ready to take. And I think just by our work ethic, our ability to just persevere will get us to the point that we just left, as far as the amount of responsibility, the accountability that we will have, the ability to lead others. That'll come in due time. And that's one thing that I've learned. And so to answer your question, there are a ton of skills. The mere fact that I can send an individual across the world and put that person in harm's way, give them certain broad tasks to do, and without question know that he or she is going to come back and answer all the questions that I've asked him or her to answer. I mean, there's no doubt about that. You tell me what company in the world right now would not want that individual in their team, to be able to just put him anywhere, him or her, and to be able to accomplish those tasks and come back. I mean, that's the caliber of the individuals, certainly within special operations, because they do it today, they do it every day. That's just who we are.
Mm-hmm. And then, so now after the phases that we've discussed, you've made your plan, you've discussed what you want to do, you have your mentor, you know what skills are translatable, but how do you put that into a resume? How do you show those skills now?
How do you show? That's a great question. So you have to really just get out there and talk to people. Most of my career in the military, I've been a strategic planner, worked in operations, and, managing or conducting or planning operations for an organization that has 3,000 people. It's how do you explain that to a potential employer? You have to learn the business terminology. So it's really important to utilize some of the programs that are already established that are out there for veterans. And like I said before, there are so many of them. how many, when I was an operations officer or director of operations, I managed 12 business lines, and it was with 3,000 employees, with several millions of dollars, and to be able to rearrange a several courses, or identify the courses and rearrange them in a way where we can save cost, and be more effective for the organization. So it's just a matter of sitting back and working with your mentors and your coaches, and being involved with some of these programs that are able that can help guide you through through learning the terminology of developing business models. What's the difference between a vertical or a channel within a business? I mean, these are things that I did not know, 3 or 6 months ago, until I was able to connect with a mentor who's really been guiding me for the past year or so. So it just takes time and practice, and you have to get out there. One of the things that Anna mentioned, as far as preparing for your transition, for me, I realized early on that you have to have a balance, as you analyze your life, as you analyze everything that you do. You have to have this balance. And for me, the balance is my family, my work life, and my values, or my spirituality, for example. So as you develop your transition strategy, it's really important that you seek balance, where any opportunity or the job that you're looking for is able to maximize all of those three major areas, and seek balance in all of that. Another key thing that I learned during the transition is finances. You have to be prepared to be without work for several months. Have that emergency fund. One of the luxuries, and again, I'm very grateful and blessed to be in a position where my family and I can decide where we want to work under our terms. So I'm not looking for a job because I have to work. I'm looking for a career with an organization that's a good fit, not only for me, but also for my family and I, and for the organization. So being able to have that flexibility really helps to alleviate the amount of stress. Because I'm telling you right now, transitioning is stressful. And I said it earlier, you have your highs and lows. And really the challenge is transitioning. It's not really getting the job, or certainly finding the career, but the transitioning into a whole new life.
Yeah.
Today I can pick up and, talk to different colleagues or peers who know exactly where I've been. So now when I go to small town USA, or wherever it is that we end up calling home, I'm going to have a whole new life, new friends, a new community. So that right there, I think, is the long transition. It's the one that is going to take several years to really work. So we'll see.
Yeah, thank you. We had an amazing guest today, and I'm sure you said thank you so much for your service, and the best of luck to you in your transition.